My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of the 2004 movie Hellboy. And this review will have spoilers, so there's your warning. But I used to love this movie. I used to call it one of the best superhero movies ever made. And I just rewatched it for the first time in 5 years, and I still like it. I still think this movie is good, but I got issues. So let's begin by talking about the cast. And Ron Perlman is fantastic in this movie. He brings so much personality and charisma to this character, and he just carries it incredibly well. And Selma Blair is also fantastic. She brings so much humanity to this character, and she sells you on everything that she needed to. Doug Jones plays a very interesting and different character here, and he just played him so perfectly. And Jeffrey Tambor, I thought, did a perfectly fine job. Rupert Evans, I will talk about more later, but for now, I'll say his performance is bland. John Hurt does a perfectly fine job, and Kyle Warden is terrible. I'll talk more about his character later on. So, the cast is one giant mixed bag, but the three leads are excellent. So, that's good at least. But when you're watching this movie, you can just tell that this movie is made by a man with a vision. And Guillermo del Toro directs this movie so incredibly well. This movie is weird, it's out there, it's interesting, and that's what I love so much about it. In a day and age where most superhero movies just feel generic, just feel the same, this movie doesn't. It really does stand out. And the production design and the makeup is just perfection. I love the way Abe Sapien looks. I love the way Hellboy looks. I love that one villain who keeps dying and comes back to life. That's fantastic. And hell, the movie has Hellboy wearing a zombie, a backpack. That is just awesome. So there is so much to love here. And I thought the action was very entertaining. And this movie at times feels kind of like Indiana Jones, kind of like Uncharted, kind of like Resident Evil, especially with the final boss. And as a fan of all three of those things, that made me very happy. The relationship between Hellboy and Liz has plenty of depth to it. It's not subtle. At one point, they literally spell out everything, but it's still well explored. But one of my issues with this movie is that Hellboy doesn't really have much depth to him. You've got this guy who is a hero. He saves lives, and yet he's destined to destroy the planet. And it's explored in the second movie, to my memory, but not really in this first one. his main personality trait is that he's insecure. And I don't know, I wish there was more to him. Like, even his relationship with John Hurt, like, the movie tells you that Hellboy views Broom as a father figure, and Broom views Hellboy like a son. But you never feel it. So when Broom dies, it just lacked any bit of emotional weight to me. And even Hellboy's big moment at the end of this movie is the cliche, remember who you are, and it just feels completely unearned. So, I like Hellboy as a character, I just wish there was more to him here. And then we get the character, John Miles, who just adds nothing to this movie. He is meant to be the audience point of view. He is the one getting introduced to all these weird and interesting characters, but this guy lacks any bit of personality. He isn't likable, and there's nothing there. Every time I've watched this movie and I see him for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's here. I forgot. And the villains are so painfully generic. Like, there's nothing to them. They're not menacing, they're not interesting, they just suck. The CGI in this movie can be pretty rough in moments. And this movie is over 2 hours long. And when you actually look at the movie, not much happens. So it feels stretched a little too thin. Like, Hellboy enters Earth. He's a hero. He stops this monster. There's a new guy at the department who brings Liz back. Hellboy follows those two around. Broom dies, and they go to Moscow for the big finale. That doesn't sound like 2 hours worth of storytelling. I feel like it could have either been tighter, or they could have been more to this movie. Like, especially when we get introduced to Hellboy, they're like, oh yes, this place is so weird, and maybe I wish we saw more of the weird stuff in this universe. And those creatures that plant those eggs, they don't really add much to this movie either. So I still really enjoy it. I do think there is a vision on display. I do like most of the performances. And I do like how weird this movie can be. I just wanted it to be a bit more weird, have a bit more depth, and just have better pacing. I do think there's a great movie here, but the way this movie exists is just good. And that's okay. That's good enough. So I'll give Hellboy a 7 out of 10. Okay, have you seen Hellboy? What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin,